This committee meeting will come to order. It's Wednesday, April 17th at 10 a.m. We have no one here for a public comment. We have a list of 6 discussion items to talk about. We'll start with the pay scales, and I'll turn over to
if that's all right. We've looked at, and I know the comments I have, Mr. Chairman, is that we've had a number of the commissioners make reference to want to look at the pay plan. I'm personally think that our pay plan is within market or better than market, and better in the sense that we're probably in many of our positions, particularly our technical and skill positions, probably below what the market price is for those skills. But in reference to that, I've gotten with the Connery Associates and Associates who did the study for us back in 2014 and printed in January of 15. They've given me a proposal for $25,000 to go back and do it. Prior to execute the contract, though, Mr. Burris noted our industry studies of the various positions in our industry in a survey that he produces every year. So we're going to get the most recent one they've produced, take a peek at it before we execute the agreement with Connery, just to see if we're in the right ballpark, if we're way out of text, or whether we're wasting our time on another study. But we're going to take a look at that, and if it looks like pursue the agreement with Connery and Associates, we'll do that just to make sure, see where we're at as an organization, position to position on our staff. The compensation, the copy of the report that they did in 2015 is there in your binders, sitting behind the first page. What we did, we did make adjustments at that time, is my understanding, to the pay for our individuals that were on salary and working for us at the time. Upgraded our pay plan per their recommendations.
As I recall, when it was done, there was some perceived unfairness because not everybody got it. Some people
May have already been
were already at the level that they should have been.
And that happens.
And others, especially I believe in the plants and out in the field, got some raises because they weren't.
One of the things that concerns me is when we give raises by straight percentages, that the disparity between the lower income people and the higher income people on the scale, if you give a straight 3% raise.
We don't do it like that per se. What we do, the way our raise.
What is it then just averaged back at the end of the
No.
adjustment to say it was a 3%?
No, what we, yeah, way it basically works is, if you're an employee in good standing, you get a COLA at the beginning of the year based on the CPI that was the year before.
But that's a percentage, right?
That's a percentage. That's the first part.
Yeah.
There's 2 pieces to this. We set a limit on how much the total raise for any employee can be. And that's 5%. Say, okay, if you're a superstar, stellar, you can turn lead into gold, you get the 5.
Yeah.
Because of but you start with the merit rate, the COLA. We subtract the COLA raise. Let's just say, for example, this past year's CPI was 2%. This is hypothetical, it's not the actual numbers. That means at July 1, all the employees in good standing get their 2% raise. That leaves 3% of the 5% maximum any employee can have to be split out over their merit raises. So if you're an average employee, all you're doing is, you're just keeping your job. You get your COLA and nothing more on your, once you get your merit, your performance appraisal. If you're an exceptional employee, you get a one-step merit raise. That means you've improved your skills, knowledge, and you've brought your value up within the organization. So the first step would be half of that remaining, because we only offer 2 steps maximum increase above what you're making right now during the budget period.
Yeah.
So you take that 3%, divide it by 2, the first step would be 1.5%. So an exceptional employee would get the COLA plus the 1.5%, that'd be 3.5 total. If you're a superstar and can turn lead into gold and you get the 5 on your performance appraisal, then you get both steps, which means you get the COLA, your first step of 1.5%, and a second step, because you've exceeded,
Yeah.
you've brought more value to the organization as a whole in a major way.
Let me turn that a little bit then and say, I don't even know if we title our positions this way, but let's say we have a lineman
Yep.
that is stellar, and we have a superintendent that's stellar, and their pay discrepancy is here. If we still apply that, both of them get the max or both of them get middle grades, it still broadens the difference in their salary after the adjustment, right?
Yeah.
Some,
But now-
I'm not sure.
And I'm not worried about a one-time, 1 year, but over 10 years,
Good.
it begins to be a larger discrepancy.
Yep. I guess the question is, you have pay bands.
They're
for each-
performing different jobs though, right?
Well, they are different jobs,
What am I missing?
but the disparity, if we start our lineman at $10 an hour and our superintendent at $20 an hour,
Right.
and they came on 10 years ago, then they were both stellar employees, and here's their pay. At the end of 10 years, the disparity is greater, because the superintendent's making a greater percentage more than the lineman 10 years
That's correct.
later. And that's the disparity I'm talking about. No matter how we do it, if it's always done on percentages, then the percentages puts a greater degree of separation between how the salaries were set up originally and how they eventually become. Does that make any sense?
It does,
Yes, to
but
me.
I'm not sure I understand why you wouldn't want that to happen if you've got,
I want, if a lineman is worth $10 an hour.
Right.
And that's a competitive pay grade. And our superintendents have worked themselves up with promotions till they get here. Then if they both, because of growth or non-growth or whatever, that's where they are, over the years, it becomes more
they're
No,
doing.
no, I mean, they're both going up, but it becomes
But as
the
a
curve.
and I'd have to check the numbers, but I'm not sure that the percentage difference is,
Well, I think so. I think the percentage difference the
Increase?
gap will increase no
It-
matter what, because
it
you're
would
looking at let's say 5% on 100,000 versus 5% on 30,000. So the percentage is going to always increase.
Yeah.
And I see your point, sir, and I really agree. That's why basically we're giving raises on percentages, and I think to your agreement, Jimmy, is that we have put some type of guidelines to try to hold it down, but yet it's still over time it will phase. The gap will be wider.
Gets greater. And I'm not saying there's an easy solution or here's a business formula that doesn't do it that way, but the disparity does grow over years, and it causes more separation.
Right.
With a class separation, if you will, and that's the wrong word, but it becomes a separation and disconnect between the guys that's doing the work and the guys that are supervising the work.
You want to stay within the market, and that's why we have pay banding by
Right.
a low and a high, and then
Right.
you're supposed to
And
when
reward the guy
when
that's
you
doing
get
the good
top of
job.
your
I'm
pay
all for
band,
that.
You can't get additional money.
Yeah.
here's the thing. If you start that $10 an hour guy out at $10 and you start the superintendent out at 20 in your example, what's the percentage difference between the two?
Well,
50%, right? because the $10 lineman is making half of that 20.
Yeah, 5%.
Okay, give them both, let's say this coming year, 5% apiece. In the example that I put together on my sheet of paper here, I just for kicks and grins, I said 2%. I mean, 2% total, so, I mean, 20%. So 1.2 times 10 equals $12 an hour. 1.2 times 20 equals 24.
That's a 20% raise.
That's a 20% raise, right. This is a hypothetical.
Yeah,
Each one of them got a 20% raise.
okay.
But when you look at the $12 versus $24 that they wound up, they're still at a same proportionate raise.
The percentage is exactly the same, but now you've got a guy that was making $10 an hour more than his lineman. Now he's making $12 an hour more than his lineman. And
I don't know how to do it differently.
Well,
I'm
I
not
see your
saying
point
there's-
too, Jimmy. I see your point too. I'm sorry.
I don't know that there's a formula that says, here's a better business model out there and we should be following that business. I'm not saying that, but if you took that and you went 10 years with that same, obviously,
Oh,
we're
yeah.
not giving 20% raises, but in the 10 years, you know, this guy's getting a little bit more. After a while, this guy's getting a great deal more. And
Yeah, I know what you're saying, and
if the
you're absolutely
market,
right.
if the
but-
market for each job is still in the thing, I don't know if we can do anything about it. But on a long-term thing, it begins to
Well,
disparage
and
the entry level,
Let me say one other thing too. You're right, they do trend up, even if they are still proportionally
Yeah.
the same difference by
Yeah.
percentages. But one of the things that in the industry, and I don't know if it's done in the private sector as much, but it's not uncommon to have people every 3 to 5 years go back and do a Condrey study to figure out what's happened.
yeah.
As we did back in 2015, we made adjustments to, not everybody, but some
Yeah.
of them. Maybe some of that gets brought truer to the market, what the
Right.
market value is for those positions.
And you do have to stay with market value.
So
And
maybe that-
So maybe it's a correction, and maybe that stellar guy that's a lineman, he gets promoted to an assistant
Or gets,
superintendent or.
his pay range may grow as a result of the study and analysis of what the market value is
Yeah.
for his skills.
And as Don was talking about to the band wages, it maybe corrects it. I was just.
Yeah, I'm
you know,
with you.
I'm not a real key advocate of the percentage raise, no matter how we break it.
Yeah.
No, am I. So I'm with you.
But
But
I don't know.
but it's not a flat percentage
And
for
and I
everybody.
certainly can't sit here and say, Jimmy, here's a better solution, let's do it this. I don't have one. So, I mean, I'm
Yeah.
not criticizing the formula, except that we need to look at it. You're saying that we do every 3 to
Well,
5, or?
I hadn't been here but 3 years, but, you know, I will say that I know other utilities, it's very common for them to go back every 3 to 5 years, and it depends on the utility. Not everybody does it at all, but some do.
Yeah. And one other question I've got with this, Condrey and Associates on the study they're doing, are they going, do they look at salary plus benefits as a package?
This was supposed to be a total compensation.
Total look,
Yeah.
total package,
Yeah, you
total
have to- I
compensation.
think you have to look at total compensation.
Well, I would hope so, and that was the reason I was asking, to make sure that we're looking.
I don't think that's what's here, Jim. This not, as you look at this.
I did not ask
Not
them in the
for
proposal.
For benefits and all. I don't think that's it.
Yeah, well,
It doesn't lend that way.
We can
Well, we
talk to them
Well, I
about
got-
getting that in
They
there.
were supposed to.
Well, let me just tell you my issue with this. I think I want to bring this up too. I agree with my partner here that the percentage really is something else, and I agree. Also, I have some issue with we are budgeting for raises instead of having a profit where we will have whatever that profit is, then we will have that as what we get for raises. If the joint water and sewer doesn't do well, it should not be giving raises to employees. Right
It's
now,
not doing well?
well, I'm just saying, if it does not,
if
if it
it's
does
not.
not do well, it should not be giving raises to employees.
Right.
What happens is, we already got it budgeted in there that we would give it anyhow, and we just take it on the chin. In other words, if we come out, let's say, at the end of the year, we say, wow, we have $300,000 in profit, okay? We can use that as give our employee raises. Whatever that percent, whatever it would be, we'll give our employee raises. But we come out, let's say we come out even and we don't have any money for raises, then we don't give any raises that year. But we have already built into our budget that there will be
Raise.
raises. No matter what it is, no matter how we do, we will give raises. That's the first thing that I really had some issue with. Now, I gotta say, I was here when I voted for that too, for the CPI. I was right here and voted for that. I never really took a hard look at it. One of the issues I got, Jimmy, is that as I look at this pay plan and look at this study that Cadre did, and also what we decide to accept, we have a lot of employees who are out of position, who have exceeded their pay grade, and basically we have done absolutely nothing about it. In other words, we have actually put them in higher pay grades well beyond what we said was in our
Pay plan?
yes. For instance, I'll take Mr. Jay Sellers. As a matter of fact, I want to ask you a question about how did Jay get to go from making, I guess, around $50,000 to about $109,000?
We've increased his responsibilities double, twice in the last 4 years, 3 years, whatever it is I've been here, 3 years. He's got a lot of responsibilities, and he's taken on a lot of the customer
But
service.
he's still
and
out
billing
of,
and metering.
it doesn't say that the director of administration should not be making that kind of money.
I thought that he was well within his pay grade.
No, sir.
Are you looking at Appendix C on page 16?
Yep. Say that pay grade 25, that's what he should be.
I'm not prepared, I don't have his job description with me today. Can we bring this up and talk about it separately?
Well, there's well, I'll
Because
tell you what.
I looked at after you made that comment to me here recently.
I did.
I did look at it, and according to the records I've got from Teamwork Services, none of my staff is outside their pay range. In fact, everybody's below 50% of their,
Really? Not
Really.
according to what I look at it.
Below 50%?
well, below their midpoint, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
wow.
One thing to consider, that when you look at these numbers are ran, I think, in 15. When we do the COLA, the pay band adjusts by the COLA. So if there's a 2% COLA, the bottom and the top of the pay band are both shifted by that 2%. So as the cost of living comes in, that's how those.
So you telling me pay grade 25 should be over $100,000?
Depending on what the number was here, if you adjust that by 2%.
Are you telling me it should be over $100,000? Pay grade 25. Now we look at your salary. I don't know what pay grade you are with, and he's almost close to you. So are you and him the same?
He's a step ahead of him.
Not very much. According to
Pay
his
grade.
pay.
Yeah.
Not according to the pay, it's not.
The maximum pay on a grade 25 is 118. The minimum is 79.
$118,000?
That's what this back when this was done. Yeah.
Where you at?
So basically,
Page 6.
Let's see. One more. 6, yeah.
That's not consistent with what's on page 17, 16, 17.
What's the difference in table 2A and table 2B?
That's where I'm at.
You are correct, Commissioner Stevens, that's not consistent because it appears to be that Appendix C is existing salaries and page 6 is the proposed salary scale from Congress. So
Which was
they're not going to match.
what I understood we adopted.
That's the page somebody referenced me to go on to, so.
okay.
So page 6 is the proposed that Congress put out, page 16 was the existing at the time of the study.
So which one are we working with?
We should be working with the one on page 6.
Should be.
6 or 7?
So the one on
Six.
appendix, on page 16, we're not doing that? Andrew? That's not the one we're following?
That's not the one we fall under today, no, sir, because at the very least, those have been adjusted by cost of living adjustments. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me for what the existing.
Yeah, year to year changes.
If we're gonna do a new study, it's kind of a moot point, but I don't know that you adjust a study when you adjust the COLA. I mean, I know the people's range, increase the limit, but I don't know that the range adjusts ever. I don't think most organizations do that.
Well, we didn't invent that. That's what I've seen before. And the reason they do a COLA and then a merit, number one, the COLA is supposed to say, okay, this employee has maintained their level of benefit to the company. So that the money we pay them, because of inflation, doesn't buy less. We're still basically compensating them at the value they started out with by giving them a COLA each year. The merit raise, and by giving them a COLA, we also need to adjust the pay range on the low and high end so that any new employees come in are compensated properly for what they do. So when they do a COLA, it drags the whole pay range for everybody up by that percentage.
I don't know that I agree with that, though.
We have our community here that we're trying to service. It's not a high-end community, and we seem to be, our salaries seem to be outpacing who we actually, our customers. In other words, we have high-end employees making high-end salaries, drawing money from low-end customers who we having issues with now with people stealing water or our cutoff policy. So we seem to be outpricing ourselves with our customers. And I realize that Cadre is the one who's supposed to be doing this survey, doing this study, to actually give us the information so they can so we can set our rates.
Yes.
And it seems that we are out of proportion, to me.
Well, that's why I'm making we're gonna make the effort to get a contract with them to re-review it.
Another question, do we do an annual job survey each year as to what the market around here, people are
That's what
actually,
that's what this is for. No, we don't do it.
I think if we had done that, if we had Teamwork Service do that, then they can see that we are actually pricing ourselves differently.
That's not what they do. This guy's a consultant. That's what his expertise is, to do market surveys.
That's easy to do, John. I mean,
What you're saying is.
Am I saying it wrong?
That if I can restate what I think you said, is that we need to do a market survey of salaries in this area.
Yeah, that exactly.
To see how we compare locally.
Yes.
To the salary structures.
Right.
Okay.
And normally a company does that each year or every 2 years, so they can see exactly whether they're pricing themselves out or either they are under the prevailing market of the type of jobs that they are actually hiring. So that what happens. And again, you talk about Mr. Sellers. I guess we'll talk offline about that, but I really believe that's his and a few others are really way beyond there.
We can pull them all up. I'll be glad to do that with you.
All right.
I don't even know if I'm technically allowed to talk on my member to.
Yeah, you are.
You show up and you can. I wasn't sure, but
You can talk, your vote doesn't count.
I got you. Fair enough. I'm used to that. Just like it is at home. I get to call.
It's the game.
You get to talk there.
Exactly right. Sorry.
You get to talk
I get to
there.
talk, but my vote doesn't count. But I mean, the way I'm used, I don't think we should focus as much on the individual salaries as the process. And I think we need to make sure that we have a process that guides us to the next 20 years, because if we don't have that process now, what we do is get ourselves into a situation where somebody in the future has to deal with very, very uncomfortable situations. And if you allow people to get to a point where, that it's not fair and competitive, then you either A, have to bring everybody else up to make it competitive, or you have to cut somebody's salary. Both of those are, one, financially uncomfortable and unfair, and the other is it's hard on that team member. So I think we need to really look hard at, doing a salary study, making sure that we have salary ranges that are what they need to be, and focus on the total package, not just the salary, because this is more than just salary. this is, I mean, we need to look at total package from our benefits to our vacation time to everything and make sure that we have a competitive thing, that we can recruit the best in the business, but that we have a fair process so that I was listening on the way down here to, you know, to the y'all talking and making sure, to your point, that we don't have disparity between team members. And the way I'm used to seeing it is from a budget perspective, you carry kind of this is what a 1% increase would look like, this is what a 2% increase would look like, this is for each percent we go across the board, this is what it looks like, and then when we look at our financials and see how we are, we can award people accordingly. We might not always be able to do COLA. A lot of organizations do not give a 2% COLA.
I know that.
In fact, very few organizations give a 2% COLA. A
Well-
lot of organizations strategically have decided they don't do merit raises. You get within your grade, and merit is getting promoted to the next grade. You don't get merit raises within your own grade. Very few organizations now give merit raises within the grade. So, but, you know, and some do both, some don't do either, some do one or the other. But, I mean, we need to look at the total package and make sure that what we're doing is best for the long term. Because if you're gonna give them 5% raises every year, that's 12 years and it's doubled. That's not.
Right, we're gonna price ourselves out of the business. That's basically what I think.
And the other
You know,
thing-
everybody else not making those type of.
And I
Thing.
used to, in younger in my career, I did not agree with this, but as I've been in longer, I've kind of changed my school of thought there. But I used to, when I was a frontline supervisor, think that supervisors should be able to reward this employee way more than this one because they did a better job. But what that ends up doing is it's way too subjective a process. Superintendent A, you know, wants to manage his budget. He really grades his people hard. Superintendent B wants to be everybody's friend, and he gives everybody 5%. I'd be curious to
have
know,
that.
sir.
You do, that is a struggle. You can, and there, I have been in organizations where I saw there were certain people that were just like you said. Everybody's a superstar. No, they're not.
Right. So I'd be curious to see what last year, I mean, what percentage of our people were superstars? Is it 5%
We
of
can
our
get-
superstars?
we
Is
can.
it 80% of our people are superstars?
We can get the percentages.
Well, you know, no.
Give everybody a 5% raise every year.
You know, normally, it's so funny is that the executive staff normally gets the high end. It is very rarely that you have your executive staff to be at the low end of things, because basically, you know, if they're at the low end, they need to be gone. And that's basically how a lot of folks look at it. So, you know, in my estimation, you know, if you want to, you know, let's say you have a part of, say, $300,000 and you want to give raises to your employees, why don't you give a bigger percentage to the lower end employees, you know, and let's say you give them, let's say 3%, and give the high end, I mean, the executive staff or the high end employees, give them 1%. And that way you can have a good disparity of everybody's valuable, you know, because everybody's doing the job, but you're not just giving 3% across the board to everybody. And Commissioner Stevens, you're right about we shouldn't be focused on just one or two employees individually. This should be a process to look at our whole policy and so forth. We should do that. You're right about that. But I would just say too, there have been instances where we have hired people and we didn't go through the hiring process. We just, you know, they was on board and we just said, okay, we'll give you the job. I think that's wrong.
I agree.
Because it didn't give anybody else an opportunity to apply for a job. So you're right. Our policy should be, let's stick to our policies and make sure our policy sticks so we can you know, move forward.
One other, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna go to another topic, because two of our members have to leave at 11.
Okay, I'm sorry. I can get all wrapped up with this. Apologize for I've been stewing with this for quite a while now.
Well, I think that's why we need to talk about it, and we need to give management some direction. And I think a total compensation survey and look at
So
various
we'll
other
execute
pay
that.
arrangements, and then we'll have another meeting next month and
Okay.
talk about it again.
Yeah, and I think, Don, where everybody's going is, and what the mayor was saying, is that we need to look at what comparable compensation is for our population size in other communities, but we also have to look at our community
Yeah.
and what and you know, we
Okay.
can't.
One thing I'd like to remind the commissioners, that our people require licensing to be fully qualified to do most of the jobs that we have. And that's a hard test. So we demand of an individual, when he's at the lower end of the spectrum, is that, one, he be, a hard worker and want to do that kind of work. And number two, he has to be educated enough to where he can pass a test as either a wastewater operator or as a water production person. And then there are grades that he has to do. One of the things we stopped doing, because it got to be hard, was, maybe we still do it, but when people pass their test, they got a 5% bump. Do we still do that?
Or the hourly people?
For hourly people, I guess we still do that.
If it's required by the job. You can't just go get a license.
No, I understand.
Yeah, I'm
It's
sorry.
gotta be required by
But
the
those
job.
are some of the things that are hard when you look at, somebody that's in public works at the county versus somebody that's in our organization. Their requirements for their job are probably not the same as our people have.
Yeah.
We require a more educated workforce, which,
More credentialed.
okay, unless there's more comments on this, I'd like to move on to training performance appraisal elements.
Okay, in this particular topic, I've asked Mr. Burris to take a look at it because the key components that we focused on were our operations management and what we're doing out there and how that fits with the, I guess, the concerns that I've heard from the commissioners in terms of maintenance and safety and that kind of thing. With that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Burris to kind of walk through his thoughts of what he's looked at and what we've got going in terms of how our performance appraisals fit with what we're trying to achieve.
Okay, basically, the commission provided Mr. Duncan with, some sort of key topics that wants to see addressed in a more direct manner. And then edited into the actual job descriptions for those superintendents. Those edits have been tossed in there in a draft form right now. They have not been adopted yet. But this is a pretty thick packet, with exempt employee performance appraisal to the superintendent level. Those aren't, is attached. There's a couple other forms attached, and then the edited copies are there as well that are in the draft form. But basically, we were told, and from other conversations we've had, we've considered 5 key points that we want to address as part of this. You've got improving our system functionality and reliability with the incorporation of preventive maintenance, and we know that's been an issue throughout our organization. We want to make sure that we're doing the necessary tests to determine where the repairs need to be made at instead of kind of catch as catch can. We want to improve the housekeeping on our facilities, our vehicles, and our equipment. And we want to do a big picture system analysis to determine where we need to be making improvements at. And then we want to make sure that our employees are in a safe working environment. So those 5 key points in mind can be addressed with the existing form. They would just fall under different categories. So system function through preventive maintenance can be addressed through the competencies and core values and dependability. Our core values are to be, part of our core values are to be customer focused, to be community aligned, and to continually strive for improvement. Oh, sorry. All of those functionalities play into making sure we have a reliable system. If we don't have a reliable system, we can't meet our customers' needs, we can't meet our community's needs, and we're not getting better by continually striving to improve. On the dependability side, again, we got to make sure our equipment and processes are dependable. For the necessary repairs, that can be addressed through productivity and quality of work. Housekeeping can be addressed through responsibility, because responsibility on our sheet demonstrates a commitment to the public perception of the organization. Housekeeping particularly can impact our public perception when people drive by. System analysis, again, through core values, and also problem-solving competency there, where we look at the big picture and determine the best solution rather than just finding a solution. And then promoting a safe working environment would fall under subordinate training and development, and also communication, because we have to train our employees to be safe, we also need to communicate regularly the importance of safety and not just let it be a, hey, in the onboarding process, you sat through 8 hours of safety training, we're never gonna mention it again. So, in order to formalize this process, what we looked at is, changing the job descriptions to call these things out. And basically putting the superintendents, not on probation, but a pseudo probationary situation where instead of getting an annual appraisal, they would get, after the job description is changed, a 1 month, 3 month, and 6 month appraisal to make sure that they're hitting the key points that the commission has, requested that we take care of and has mentioned in, public meetings and in discussions that they think we need to improve on. So that way, if you know, after that first month, if somebody's maybe not there, they get a, not a counseling, but they get a performance appraisal that says, hey, you need to step it up. And they get the chance to improve, and it's not necessarily going after them in any way. And it also, if they're doing really well at these things, they get documented in their employee file that they're knocking it out of the park on these topics that we're looking at. And then, you know, after 3 appraisal periods, if you haven't improved yet, we can put people on what's called a performance improvement plan. It's a specific plan that outlines what improvements need to be made. It has a time frame, and if you don't meet that, you would be subject to disciplinary action.
Does this happen to the directors too?
Yes, you can.
Superintendents, you just mentioned superintendents. What about your directors? Director of administration, director of whatever, all these other things, if they come in new to the position?
Yes, if it comes in new to the position, you're automatically on a 12-month probationary period.
Right, we just talking about evaluation though. You just talking about superintendents basically now, right?
Right, what we were kind of instructed by the commission was to look at, they're upset on the overall direction of and things are not getting done at a rapid enough pace in the operations field, so that's why we're discussing this.
Oh, no, operation, okay, but I think it should be overall too as well. If you hire a new director, they should be subject to the same thing.
Yes, sir, and they are. A new director would go on a probationary period, they get
12
a
months.
1, 3, 6, 9, and 12-month appraisal on that 1-year probation.
They do?
Yes.
They do.
Okay.
And that's all employees, not just the directors. If we hire a crew worker on a
Right.
probationary period, he gets that same thing. So this would be, because we're updating their job description.
Right.
We would address those situations as part of this process.
Okay. So we go back and look at the new directors and new superintendents, we should see.
Records of their appraisals, their probationary appraisals.
All right.
Andrew, do we, on, looking at safety, do we have weekly safety meetings, with each of our superintendents where they directing their employees? Is there a safety program in place at this point?
We have 2 different safety meeting type scenarios. We have a safety council where each department or division has a representative on the council that gets together once a month and meets, and then that individual goes back and reports to the departments of what the recommendations of the committee were.
Yeah.
We also, our departments have individualized weekly meetings. where
Weekly meetings?
They go over, you know, here's the things we want to get done this week, here's what we didn't get done last week that's still on the list. And as part of that, they're supposed to be doing safety briefings as part of every one of those meetings.
Yeah, I know under our workman's comp, you know, that's the most common question is are you having your weekly safety meetings?
And
So
then-
we probably need to step that up to make sure that there's some kind of comment
Sure.
made to just keep it on people's minds.
Sure, and then Teamwork Services actually sends out what's called the Toolbox Topic of the Week every week, and the employees get a copy of that every week. It's a different safety topic every week that they select to send out.
Okay, now that at one time, the superintendents were supposed to conduct an informal class with the tool box information.
That's correct.
And we
That's
still
part
do
of the
that?
weekly meeting. That's
I
part of
mean,
the-
they call people together and they go through that toolbox and make sure everybody knows what's supposed to happen in a given situation.
Yes.
We talk about backing up, we talk about closed or confinement procedures and things like that.
That's correct. They still go through that in their weekly
So,
meetings.
so Jeffrey's still doing
That's
that
correct.
with providing that at the staff meeting.
That's correct. We get that usually every Tuesday morning.
Okay.
And do we have any spot inspections of how our workers are performing safety-minded tasks when they're out in the field? Is there anybody
We
at a
have-
higher level that just does random checks?
We have 2 currently, and we're working on a 3rd portion of that. The workers' comp people do come out a few times throughout the year and observe workplace safety habits, and we get reports back on that. If a superintendent goes out in the field, they're supposed to be making notes of safety issues. I know if I go out in the field and I notice anything, we make sure to address it at that point. And the 3rd thing we're looking at doing is getting members of our safety council to actually start making site visits as well, to not necessarily, they won't be having any sort of disciplinary authority or anything, but they can make recommendations that they see. And it also helps the members of the safety council that work in one area, maybe see the work that the other people are doing and understand the differences.
Okay, thank you.
Well, another comment on that. I do stop. And it seems like to me that every time I do stop and talk to them, I find them without their helmets on in a situation, or without their vest on if they're next to the road. And I didn't used to correct them on the spot. I just tell the executive director, but now I've started going ahead and telling the team chief who's there at the time, you know, get your people in proper
Proper
uniform.
PPE.
That's why I
Yeah.
still think we should change uniforms to something that's high visibility.
You know what? A lot of folks do that nowadays. They do that
Yeah.
nowadays.
No, I don't
They
think
have-
it's a bad idea at all.
They have the shirts that's the,
No, I agree
what you
with
call,
that.
call that
Reflective.
bright, that bright.
Yeah.
I mean, right now, it's
Yellow,
really
whatever.
asphalt flavored. I mean, asphalt color, not flavored.
I hope they don't take
What's that for?
That bright yellow color, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Right.
I mean, a lot of people make them where they.
Exactly.
24/7 in it.
And that-
Walk in the door, you're in it.
Yeah, I encourage
Right.
commissioners to do that, to stop and see what they're doing and talk to them. And you know, they appreciate that. Shows that you're interested, and if we start doing it, maybe they'll start taking safety a little more serious. So, we're gonna go to technical training program.
Andrew, let me ask you one thing. The changes on those descriptions, is it the stuff in red or the stuff in blue?
Is that just a draft, or that just something that's
This is the
coming up?
draft here. Basically, the stuff in red was sent in and added, and then the stuff in blue were minor wording changes to the stuff in red, so it's actually both of them. So anything in red, the blue's just things that were changed once the red got put in there. So it's edits to the edits.
So is this the only 2 you changing? Or
There's
3?
4 of them that are being changed.
Okay. And we just got 2 of them.
The edits are the same for all 4 that we're changing. The only difference would be the wording, say on the systems pumping one where it says
Right.
maintains function and reliability of wastewater collection assets. It would say water production assets or water distribution assets or
Okay.
wastewater treatment assets. Those are the only
Okay.
change in the wording.
All right, okay.
But we didn't get the other superintendents. We only got 2 superintendents.
I
We got all
apologize
4
for that. We'll make
superintendents.
sure we
That,
get those.
we don't have it in the packet.
Okay.
But
All 4 of them have been changed.
All 4 of them are in the draft form being changed. We just wanted to discuss today before we
All right.
fully change them.
Okay. Basically, you're changing stuff that's generic to all 4 of them.
That's correct.
Okay.
So that way, you know, it's, everybody's on a level playing field. We're trying to increase these skills in all of our areas because we see it as an area of need.
it's broad.
And, you know, the job descriptions are very broad in general, right now, so we're just calling out these specific items to eliminate some of that vagueness.
Yeah.
Will you have the finalize and update us at the next meeting, please?
Absolutely.
And take a look at the key directors that are not in operation, see what changes we need to make in theirs.
Sure.
Thank you. Now we'll go to Stepwise Training.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Basically, what the Stepwise Training program is in technical hourly, one of the things that we've again, responding to our needs to be a little more proficient in certain areas, doing certain things. We've got folks in maintenance, electronics, our electricians, our SCADA, our construction inspection, in our lab, our plant operations. All these jobs are technical to semi-technical hourly positions. One of the things that, you know, we're not unusual, but one of the things that for a small to medium-sized utility that becomes a problem is, especially when you're in an area where there's not a lot of folks already skilled in the areas that we need, is they're very much reliant on bootstrap training. Bootstrap and whoever knows something that works with them at the job. I think that as an organization, if we're going to place greater emphasis on our maintenance and our maintenance, preventative maintenance, we've got to be able to ensure that the folks that are doing the work have the skill sets they need to do the work. One of the things that me and Andrew have talked about on many occasions, an idea that I wasn't the first, I've heard it at other utilities, is doing formal training for the technical jobs. Most utilities that do this, they're larger and they focus on the maintenance end of things, but I'm saying this is a program that in the long run we ought to be doing for all of our technical jobs, so that we're ensuring that every employee that has technical responsibilities can meet the requirements of their job description. I would say there are employees we have right now that couldn't, they're not provided the training they need to be as successful as we need them to be, to do the things we need to do, particularly in the maintenance area. So from that perspective, if we follow the model that some of the larger utilities have, and I've got a solution to how we can follow that model, even though we're not real big, we would, my suggestion in my program, we would do we would take candidates in, we would test them to find out if they've got the intellectual acuity to learn the things they need to do and to be successful in executing, using those skills in the job place. Once that's done, you bring folks in at an entry level pay grade as well. As you train them up, we'll say it's a maintenance tech. So they come in as a maintenance tech trainee at 1 pay grade. We'll just say hypothetically $10 an hour, which we know is below what they would make. But come in at 10, and they have maintenance tech 1, maintenance tech 2, maybe a maintenance tech 3. Maintenance tech 1 might have certain basic maintenance skills in pipe fitting, electronics, millwright skills, carpentry, whatever, electricity, and get them basic skills to be functionally beneficial to us and safe to work, because they understand enough about what they're doing to be able to do the job. Right now, those folks that come in and it's just catch as catch can. Let's walk around and see what the other guys are doing. If we happen to see something that we'll be doing in the future, great. Maybe I'll learn it, maybe not. But what we would do is identify those skills and the degree of competency in each skill, and then give them a timeline to achieve the learning or the training and complete competency testing for that, we'll say maintenance tech 1. At that point, they've done the testing, they've met their probationary requirements for training, and if they've passed their competency testing, we give them a promotion from maintenance trainee up to maintenance tech 1, and therefore a pay grading improvement based on their new sets of skills, something in line with, we'll say, the Condrey study. And as you go forward, more advanced skills as you go up to a maintenance tech 2. And again, the same kind of, there's a timeline involved there. There would be competency testing, and there would be pay considerations. Maybe a maintenance tech 3 would be the soft skills, the management skills, the supervisory skills that would provide them those skills that would make them capable of pinch hitting for their supervisor, or better yet, jumping into their role if they were to retire or quit. We would have a process and program to give them some additional compensation for demonstrating the ability to manage those skills. And certainly at that point, if you got a maintenance tech 3, from time to time you'd want them to fulfill those skills. with that, we would do that for all of our technical skilled positions. Now, the conversations that I have as far as how we implement that, I've been in conversations with our folks at GAWP, the Georgia Association of Water Professionals. They're basically a statewide organization for water and wastewater. The folks that I'm talking to there, there's a Mike Thomas, comes from industry and from the regulatory side and is the liaison. They have the contacts through all the utilities in the state and the bigger ones. In our discussions, what I've told him I'd like to see happen is that GAWP takes a leadership role in training, especially for the small, and I don't mean, you know, throwing out a class every now and then, that kind of thing. I'm talking about providing formalized training materials and helping us execute from a program standpoint. My vision would be they would set up training materials and maybe in coordination with some of the other bigger utilities who maybe have already invented that wheel. They would share that with the other utilities around the state. The training materials might be a combination of online self-study where we'll say a maintenance tech is sitting there doing the work, and there's online testing to test their ability to understand the material. Some of the training might be mini labs. It's a 1-day or a 2-day training to go and learn about how to weld, to go and learn about how to work on a pump. What are the issues with doing electrical work? How do you program a PLC? How do you rewire a pump? Believe it or not, we've got maintenance people that don't know how to rewire a pump. And we'll have to get an electrician in just to put the power to it. So those are the kinds of weaknesses that they could help us with. It was mini labs and that kind of thing. And there might be from time to time an extended school of a week or something where we'd have to send folks off to a centralized location. And I know some of the bigger utilities here in our state are developing research, laboratory, training facilities at their expense that they're going to be utilizing, and maybe that's an opportunity for us all to participate for a fee or some sort where we can't afford to do the whole thing ourselves. Anyway, the folks I've been talking to at JWP are receptive to it. It's just a matter of getting it started, and it'd be like eating an elephant, a bite at a time, with our emphasis starting with the maintenance folks and working our way up into the other technical areas with time. But that's the technical stepwise training that I have in mind, and I hope that it would be one that would produce better results for our employees, safer working habits, and better results for our utility. So that's the discussion I have today on that. Any questions?
I just want to say this. You know, a moment ago we talked about how our employees are well-trained and have to be certified and have to have a license and so forth. And now, what is this training here is saying? Is that they're getting soft skills training or something like that to make them better?
No, I didn't say that.
I know you didn't say that, but I'm asking.
No, what it's going to be training them on are the things that are basically part of their core everyday functions. Right now, if a maintenance guy, a guy who's supposed to have general skills in almost all areas of maintenance, whether it's electricity, programming, doing millwright working on pumps, doing pipe fitting, welding, doing minor carpentry, whatever those minor skills or basic skills are, if an individual like that can't wire up a pump, we're not providing training for them to be functional in their role.
Why did we allow them to go get a license? I mean, they got a license to do stuff.
The license is
Maintenance
more
people are
academic.
not operators. I'm talking about the mechanical process folks, the folks that work in the plant, the folks that work out in the pump stations, taking care of the process type equipment.
Okay. Just saying.
Okay, anything else?
Anyway.
Okay.
Could we maybe have a list of a skill set that we could, it's just a wild idea. We might have some kind of certificate that we would present at a vocational school for one of the students who met certain criteria, made sure he trained up in all of these different areas, or?
You're talking about as part of this program or separate?
It's really separate, because this is for entry level coming in. We may be able to attract people that actually have skills and have the vocational school prepare them to come in here with a certificate. Just a wild idea.
Yeah, and I actually, it's because of my own personal experiences here, I checked in, and the vocational schools here do have some of what we need, but they're not broad as we need, and they don't hit on some of the things that, you'd have to drive to Waycross to get some of the more,
Get them to cover all the
technical
categories.
aspects of what we do with the millwrights and the PLCs.
Not work with the VOTEX here to include those programs? That
We
would-
could, but I'm not sure that, me training 12 people is going to keep that program, and if
Sure.
there's not demand community-wide for those pieces,
That's
they're not going to do
legit.
it for us.
Yeah, no, I understand that.
If we had more industry here, yeah, it'd crank up without us having to talk to them.
Yeah.
But I'll check into the
What
certificates of,
I would suggest is you talk to Georgia Pacific and see if they have those skill sets and how they get their people trained.
They use a lot of union people.
Yeah. Sure, Pine will probably have those. skill sets.
contract it all in.
Pine will probably.
They bring, I mean, they use a lot of union, they do use a lot of contract too, but they have a lot of the union trades.
Okay, any other discussion on this? Okay, they've provided us the workers' compensation claims for 2018 and so far in 2019. And that's pretty much just a
Summary of what they,
summary of what we've done, just for your information.
Andrew, who was the individual that we had, the one person that was still, had a lingering injury, infections?
There's a gentleman that works as a line cleaning crew member. He runs the backcon for us, that has got a recurring infection problem with his hands. So he is the only one that is currently off work due to a work-related injury.
How much is this costing us? I guess it would be in the finance report.
It will.
It will be in the financial report, but the workers' comp actually decreased this year.
Yeah, okay.
And that was based on lower claims from
Right.
previous year.
It wasn't. So did the number of accidents decrease, or it just,
For the last year, when we had safety stand-down day, they've remained relatively constant. We've seen a tremendous decrease over the last 3 to 5 years in the number of accidents, but we seem to have somewhat stabilized around a general number now, so we're working on ways to continue to reduce that number.
are they working comp issues of stupidity, not stupidity, but actually
Negligence?
not following rules or something?
We got a little bit of both in there.
Or just maybe just major accidents happening?
We got a little bit of both. We got some that are just fluke things that happen, and we got some that weren't following proper protocols and ended up hurting themselves.
Okay,
So it's a little bit of both of those in there.
that's training, okay.
Okay, we can move on to the next subject, which is, I wanted to let you all see what the participation was on the health plan from 2019. And I think if you have behind it 2018. We might consider next year adding some money on the health savings account.
I'm sorry.
How much we putting in that now?
We're not putting anything in right now. We pay.
That's up to the employee
That's
to
the
do.
employee pays for it. So he puts it all in. So we don't really, in my opinion, there's a slight disparity between what we're paying for with the other two plans where we're paying, they have high deductible versus where the health savings account, where we don't put anything in, but we just provide a platform for them to put something in, and they pay part of the cost.
Make it like an option for them to do a deductible that goes into an account for them or
Right.
something?
That they would have, that, I mean, we could look at setting aside a certain amount of money to go into the health savings account for these employees that chose to do that, because that's overall the cheapest option for us, is to try to move our employees that way, I think.
I've cautioned us to, go too much to a high deductible plan, though. I mean, these high deductible plans, they look really good on the surface, but, they're not good they're not as good for the health of the employee, because what ends up happening is they don't go to the doctor when they need to.
That's
They
right.
don't go get things checked out. They don't get MRIs when they need to, because they don't think they can afford the deductible. I mean, so, that's obviously I'm in the healthcare business, but I mean, that is a big thing nationally that is healthcare organizations are struggling.
And we were a little bit concerned after the sign-up period this last time that we might have had a couple of employees that thought that were, and maybe not, maybe so, but we couldn't understand why they didn't sign up, unless it was just to what you were saying, Mr. Stevens, that too big a deductible, the coverage wasn't going to provide them any help.
Yeah, I just think we need to, balance out what's best for the employee versus the cost. But, again, if we're looking at the entire package, and, we go back to that Condrey, or maybe even, look at some other, I don't know how we chose Condrey, but if we look at the total compensation package, we should be able to get a fair and affordable health insurance plan that adequately covers employees for what they need, and candidly encourages them to go to the doctor when they have needs. If there's a need, they need to be encouraged to go, because prevention is what saves us money. And so we're not really looking at the big picture here. If we have somebody that develops, some long overarching, 10-year health problem that's gonna be working for us, that we're gonna drive everybody's premium up because of that employee didn't spend some money in the beginning and get something preventative. They didn't get their diabetes under control, and they waited till it ruined their kidneys, and now we're responsible for paying for that, and we're also affecting everybody's health insurance rate. We can't just look at the numbers on this paper, we need to look at the big picture.
I will say that the current plans we have, they do incentivize you to have a primary care physician to get seen by them instead of going to your traditional walk-in clinics, because it's 3 times as expensive to go to a walk-in clinic as it is to go to your primary care doctor. So we already have some incentives to get to that point now, and we can go more in that direction.
I just think we need to look hard at this, because there's the paper cost that's on this nice little Excel one-page spreadsheet, but then there's the cost that, long-term costs associated with having somebody that has a negative outcome that we're responsible for, and that obviously didn't help that employee to have a negative outcome.
That's right.
When we could.
The county has a wellness center, and I don't know, I've not been there long enough to know how well that works, but it helps employees going through that wellness center. I don't know if there's anything that we can look into to do something similar, or.
You may recall when we were talking through the insurance premiums and what we were going to do for the insurance offerings this time, I think in the discussion we had in here was, what are those options we can have that will, as Commissioner Stevens was saying, impact how our employees take care of themselves and what they do, and giving them incentives within the program to, in some fashion, to encourage them to do those things that help them take care of themselves and in fact, help them reduce their long-term health issues. We just haven't had time to jump on that, but we think there are some incentives to break out some of this. And talking to Katina, the broker for our insurance, she says those are possible out there, but it's not the kind of thing that we can wait till next December to work on. We've been pretty busy, so we haven't jumped out on that, but I agree with what you're saying, Commissioner Neal.
Do we require that all employees have health care?
No, we do
Probably
not
no.
require it. That's elective.
We don't require it.
No, it's offered to everybody, but you can't require them to take it.
To have health care.
Yeah. I don't
We
think.
Some of them
require
probably
them-
have it from their spouse.
We require them
Yeah,
to
to
sign
have
a
it from
form
somewhere.
that says if they don't want health care from us, you have to sign a form that says, I have elected not to take employer-sponsored health care with this organization. So we have forms where everybody signs either they elected health care or did not elect health care, but we don't require them to take our insurance.
Right.
So we have 127 participants, looking at this front sheet. And then you have, on the left bottom corner, 133 enrolled employees. I would think those two numbers would be the same. What's the
Those numbers should be the same.
difference in that? They should be the same,
It
okay?
you're right, it should be.
And then, what, we have about 165 employees?
Currently, there's 164 positions. We have 6 or 8 vacancies, so we're probably running in the mid-150s on actual.
So we have about 30 employees who didn't enroll.
Now, they may have, insurance, spouse, yes.
Right, a
They
lot
have
of them
certain spouse.
that are enrolled, we have a fair number of ex-military personnel that are still on the military insurance. And then we have some that take insurance with their spouse because they have cheaper or what they consider better plans.
Right.
And we have some that are on Medicare because they're at the age where they can get Medicare, but they're still working here.
Yeah, we've got some of that.
Thank you.
So what do we need to do about that? I mean, to your point, can't wait till December, but I think we do need to start early on this whole process, but we really need to look hard at the whole big picture benefits, but also the big picture insurance and not,
Staff has not made the time yet to sit and look at those alternatives for, incentivizing folks to get better outcomes and doing it through the policies we've got.
with all due respect, I think it needs to be a consultant. I mean, this is a very specialized thing, and maybe there is somebody on staff that has some knowledge, but this is a very specialized thing. I think we need to, have somebody look at it personally, in my opinion.
I don't disagree. We might come up with something, but there might be somebody out there that's already invented the wheel.
Okay, we're ready to move on to defined benefit plan. And so that you all will be aware of how many people we've got that are going into the window for retirement. Staff prepared employees that are eligible for pensions that was sent to you. Given my own way I did things, I think, and my wife, I think that many people now that are in the age bracket to retire are gonna hold off retiring until such time as they either have Medicare, because health insurance on an individual basis is extremely expensive, or they are eligible for Social Security, because your retirement pay generally will not cover all your money needs that you need upon retirement. So I think a lot of people stay in the job, continue to work just for health care and until they get to Social Security. And I think that a lot of these people that are eligible will probably not necessarily retire over the 5 years that they're eligible, but they probably, as they move up in age. What that does to us then is they're an older workforce, and then they have more health problems generally.
What does the yellow and green mean? What do the colors mean?
Yellow are the folks that are currently eligible. They could literally qualify to go out tomorrow or today.
And what does green mean?
Green means in the next 5 years, they'll be headed that way.
And blue? Blue means what?
Blue are those individuals that are not eligible per our retirement years, but are at the age where they are getting close in the next 5 years to being able to get Medicare and Social Security. So maybe they've only been here a couple of years, but they're, in their 60s.
Medicare at 65 and Social Security at 62?
That's correct.
Okay, the next thing I wanted, I don't know whether you're still gonna discuss this afternoon or not, but, in the document that we were provided, John sent out yesterday, the markup that he had for the pension plan differences. Most of them are of a housekeeping nature and not really affect the plan. It's just some changes. There was one new thing, which was on reemployment after normal or alternative normal retirement. And that's a whole new section. Our portion of it is the participant benefit shall be suspended in accordance with Section 606 of the master plan as long as the participant remains employed. So that's an added change, and I don't know what the impact on that is.
If I'm understanding it correctly, it just raised the amount, there's a cap at where you get to contribute in and your salary gets to continue to grow and you increase your what do you call it?
Well, that's on your
Retirement
final-
benefit.
That's on your final average earnings, but I don't know what this new suspension of benefits following a bona fide separation and service.
Is that in the packet for the financial meeting this afternoon?
Yes, sir.
So most of us don't have that then, unless we have.
And I didn't get anything from John last night, not unless
It was,
came
it
late.
was, it was for me. I forwarded over
saw it.
yesterday morning, I think.
It was in response to my email Friday, I sent
Yeah.
a thing out asking for which, by the way, the highlighted version is so much easier for us to read. There's a
Yeah.
30-page document, there's 2 lines in change. Go ahead and highlight whatever comes to it, show us the differences.
So you
Don't
get
make
to
it
the
read-
meat of it.
Don't make it read a 30-page original and a 30-page new and try to decipher what's the difference.
So is John gonna be here this afternoon to go
Yes.
through these changes? Okay,
Is that the one where someone's retires and then is reemployed,
yeah.
the new item?
Now, I went through it, because actually John missed a couple.
Oh, really? That's disappointing, because it's kind of the whole point of having a highlighted copy.
That one made sense from what he had checked.
And anyway, the bigger change is the fact that, you can't have more than, and he sent out the new figure for 2019, but in 2018, it was $22,916 a month. After that, you're capped.
That works out to $275,000 a year.
Yeah.
So that was the major change.
So we don't have, it right now, it's running $275,000, that's in the plan.
Commissioners.
Yeah, right. Ben. But he's not on the plan.
That's him.
I don't have a pension.
So anyway,
275 a month or a year?
a month, no, that 275 is a year, but
This is good.
it's the monthly
I
amount.
don't know how many employees that are eligible for these plans are hitting that number, but you don't see a whole lot of government employees making $275,000 a year.
Okay, that covers all the topics we were gonna cover today. Are there any other questions or comments?
I think just, back to the original thing, I mean, this document here is at the very, very end, and we had this with, each individual grade beside it, and the min max, and, I think that would clear up a lot of the questions from earlier in the meeting.
Okay. You wanna put the
We can come
job
back to it.
titles?
Yeah, right, basically
We
the job
can-
titles and the grades.
We can do that. Job titles and grades.
And I would be curious to know, because, back to the original conversation about raises, my goal would be to make sure that we are paying everybody fairly, which is, don't pay anybody too low, but at the same time, don't, pay somebody so, ridiculously that when something happens, we can't recruit somebody back to that position. But, I'd be curious to know with the, performance appraisals, what kind of percentage of our population is getting the max versus who's getting the minimum?
I got that as one of my,
And you could easily add that on here, I mean, that'd be easy to add and say,
okay.
I mean.
These who are
by
in,
division even, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I
No, but
thought
by
you were
division, I
finished.
mean, is one division giving everybody a 5, or one division giving everybody a, a 3? Or how does that work? That's my biggest thing with the performance evaluation, is I've seen it, I've been on both sides of the fence of that. I've seen other managers abuse it and give their team way more, my team was lagging behind, but I've also been an employee who, felt really good about my employee performance evaluation. This is not here in Glynn County, but felt really good about the performance evaluation. We had somebody in the department who was really, really lagging behind. Then when I accidentally found out what they were the superstar in the department, and everybody in the department knew they were the worst one in the department, and that person was friends with the boss. And that's what happens, is people who are friends with the boss, or the boss feels sorry for, or they think they need the money, they end up unfairly compensating them.
I came in late, but along those same lines of the performance, I'm wondering if it would make sense, something that I would think might be a idea to consider would be to not budget for raises.
I said that.
But did you already talk about that?
I did.
Yeah.
Put those raises, reserve the raises, reserve that, have the funds, reserve it, and then have a different performance ratings for employees, the general population versus the superintendents, staff, management, because those salaries tend to be different.
He said that.
So that's already been discussed.
Yeah, he basically, Commissioner Neal talked about that part, the disparity, how it happens. And I talked about, not just budgeting for raises.
Reserving the budget, reserving
Yeah.
the increase
Well, you could take it out of the
of the operating budget.
operating budget and set it aside.
Well, I don't think you should budget for it, period. Because,
Well, if you're gonna give it, you're gonna have to, at some point,
well, that's what I'm saying. You shouldn't automatically get it. Shouldn't.
I would hate us to go into a situation where we give no raises and we wound up like a lot of government activities, which nobody gets anything for a long time, and then all of a sudden you have to,
Well, I don't think it would be for a long period of time. I mean, that means if that means that your organization is not doing well at all. I mean, why give a raise to somebody if your organization is going in the toilet?
I know.
I mean, that's our business,
The
though.
Condrey study was because we had employees that had been held back a long time. And a lot of people got a lot of money
Yeah.
in
Well,
raises.
Yeah.
And if we don't keep pace
But
with
you
the
have to keep
market,
it, yes.
we'll train people, and then other people will steal them, or they'll find opportunity in other places. So we have to keep pace with the
Right, I
market,
agree with
but
that.
Yeah.
but we don't need to outpace the market.
No.
And I think when we start looking at our total compensation plan, we may be outpacing the market. And
I'll say this, in response to that. Well, I know there's, a lot of commissioners that feel as you do, Commissioner Neal. If I look at the number of people lining up to get those jobs that we put out there, the list is, the lines are getting shorter.
well, I get that, but that's straight across
It's
the
not like we
board.
got hundreds of people looking or people jumping ship from somebody else to come over here to jump.
Well,
with.
Jimmy,
We're getting
basically, sometimes there's an employee market and an employee market. It all depends. It shifts. It all depends on
I know,
what's out there.
I'm just saying, right now, in this particular period of time,
Well, maybe at this particular time.
Yeah.
But we can't keep constantly.
And I agree with you, but
We can't keep constantly giving these raises until you price yourself way out there. Then you're really paying people just to stay on the job.
Well,
They're not really competent. They just they come there because it's a higher paying job.
there's just so much philosophically we need to decide, and I think we need a really strong consultant to help give us some guidance here, because this is a big thing and it's costly. But I mean, just looking at the salary, and I'm not gonna bring up names or anything, but looking at the very last page, there's one individual on here that will be making $500,000 in 20 years if they get a 5% raise every year.
well, now, you don't pass them beyond the top of their pay scale, their pay range. So no matter what that arithmetic generates,
Wow.
there's a limit.
Yeah, I'm just worried about an individual been here less than 5 years,
And
making
and
over
I- and I-
$100,000. That
but
just don't
philosophically,
commute.
do you give a 5% raise every year? That is the
That
question.
just don't work out.
yeah.
It don't work out with me.
Back on this,
Yes.
Yeah, and Jimmy, just back to my point earlier, if you look at page 6 in section 1 there, You take the 18.9, grade 1, and over the 5 steps, that pulls him up to 28,000. That's a $10,000 increase. You go down to grade 26, that's roughly $70,000 more that he's making on year 1, but by the 5th step, it's over $100,000 difference. So the 28 to 131 is $103,000 versus 18 to 87, which is roughly $70,000. So that disparity keeps
It's growing.
kicking up.
It grows.
And they're getting a percentage based on this year's salary, and if my margin grew a little bit this time, it'll grow a little bit more next time, and it creates a bell curve. So,
The only question I have about it is on Appendix C, why does the wastewater treatment supervisor or superintendent, it looks like he's getting less than the water production supervisor?
I don't know that either.
I
I
mean,
kind of figure out, and
That was, I think that was the case, but,
the PDM is getting a lot more.
I'm fairly certain that all of the superintendents are in the same pay grade now. That's
Okay.
part of the Congress study. I'm pretty sure they put all of them in the same pay grade. That's old.
Yeah, but,
All of them was in pay grade 23, I
you know,
believe.
that really, when you look at what you have one superintendent, all he has is 7 people.
Yep.
So you get more money because of, more people you supervise? I'm just asking, what, you know,
I mean,
it all depends on,
There's
Well,
a
like
lot of
the-
issues that go into it. It could be the number of people, it's the complexity of the issues, the number of different functional issues they might have under their, so it's not one thing or another, it's the collective.
Well,
of-
he is responsible for a lot of facilities.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he has all the water production, so.
Have you already hired the concrete people?
No, I
I
have not.
think that's,
I mean, I think it'd be worthwhile for getting them to come in here and let us question. I mean, question how they do it and, you know, have a, whether it be a call meeting or the whole group or a small committee or whatever, but have,
They're
Set
right,
it up
they're,
for the
they're
next
out of,
Human Resources, ask them to come down.
they're out of Norcross, so that shouldn't be a big
if that's
deal.
who you want to hire them, but I mean, we could, you know, have them come give a presentation on what they plan to do, but I think we need to set the stage with them. We want.
yeah, I need to know their criteria, or what they did, how did they come up with this study? I'm pretty sure, I mean, some of it's in here, but not necessarily, did they do a local market study? They just looked at, comparable size, I guess, cities or whatever, and then just came up with, make some kind of analysis and gave it to us.
They talked about the folks they surveyed for this one. It's a pretty broad group across the state and close by, so but getting them to come in for a presentation, I'll pull that up.
Well, it appears to be 4 in Georgia, 4 in Florida, 1 in South Carolina, 4 in Georgia be the Macon Water Authority, Noonan Utilities, Satilla Regional Water Authority, and City of Savannah.
Right.
Those are the 4 they did, but I mean, to your point, we're competing with GP, we're competing with, you know, we're competing with Dollar General, we're competing with everybody in our community.
well, and we got less people in the labor force now. I mean, just there may be people out there, but there's less people that want to work. And we're running into it in our industry, and
bet.
we're not exactly the same as utility, but we're competing to have some of the same people working for us. So it's getting harder to find people at any pay grade to come in and do the work. They're not coming in the labor market. So.
That's why I don't think a lot of them qualify, to tell you the truth, because they got so
well.
many restrictions.
Can't pass drug tests.
Exactly, that's one of them too, yeah, right.
Just, so,
Andrew, the industrial, the industry standard that you have, that you're looking at, that'll show things for the southeast, it might even have them for Georgia, won't it?
It should, yes, sir, and it's for medium-sized utilities. They don't look at, you know, what a small utility and what, you know, the city of Atlanta might pay. It's specifically people that serve between 10 and 100,000 people. So it's very much down to that level where we would be comparing against that.
So you could have something pretty quick to show us on that.
As soon as the book gets here.
But it's comparing total package.
Yes, it's supposed to be.
That's-
I
that's
ordered the
really
book,
key.
I ain't got it in yet, but that, according to the description, that's what it's supposed to
If
be.
you pay me $1 a year and cover my expenses, we're good.
yeah.
But I'm, you know, I mean, you know, just, you know,
And give me health care and
They
a
pay me
pension.
nothing, okay?
that's part of my expense package.
I
we're-
get nothing, okay?
We're pro grata here.
Yeah.
Back on this form. all of these yellow, is there a program
There's a spreadsheet.
that is monitoring,
Oh, no,
replacement of these folks?
no. We have not been,
Thinking about how we're gonna replace them, who's
no,
gonna replace them?
the closest.
I think
the
just
closest thing-
identifying them really starts the
Step
ball
one.
rolling. But you're right, that starts the ball rolling. We need to be aware of a number of our employees are retirement eligible, so how we gonna, pipeline people to get to that?
Yeah, that's the concern.
So-
And to an extent, we've talked about, at least for the management roles, how to develop succession planning and work those kind of details out within the organization. For the hourly folks, particularly on the, it's a little bit less, it's a little bit more difficult at times to get those technical hourly folks lined
Step
up to
training.
replace them. Yeah,
May get
training,
'em-
if we build them, if we build the training program so we can grow them within our organization, then the succession plan takes care of itself.
Commissioner, I'm out of time.
Okay, meeting is adjourned.
Boy, this was fun.